Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, July 24th at approximately 8:30 in the morning. My name is Larry Cedar, and I'm back with you for another session on Sqanning, Sqanning, which is a relaxation technique that utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical and ultimately emotional and mental peace. Yeah, I've never done it this early. This is kind of interesting. 8:30 in the morning. But I do have some things I have to get to, so I thought I'd sneak in a session before I started my day. Have a lot of thoughts on the subject of scanning this morning, but I'll try to limit them so that we can get right to the actual practice of the technique. Um, you know, People have said to me, well, you do basically the same thing every session. So why don't you just run the same session? Why don't you just create the perfect session and then just run it, for people to see? And I need to remind everyone that I do these sessions as part of the 2 or 3 sessions I do a day. I do these sessions for myself, to benefit myself, to train myself in this practice of scanning. But I do this one particular session as a public session to share the practice with anyone who might like to try the technique or thinks they might benefit from the technique. So every day I accumulate the same stresses, muscular tension, psychological tension, emotional tension that everyone does. No matter how relaxed a state I might bring myself to, by the time another 24 hours has passed, I've accumulated a whole new set of stresses and strains and concerns and worries. So I do this as an ongoing practice to balance what I call the contraction in my life with expansion. Again, the fundamental principle of scanning being based on the idea that in the universe we basically vacillate between 2 processes, contraction and expansion. Squeeze your hands together, contraction and expansion. And we're always vacillating between the 2. And we tend to be unhappy, feel uncomfortable, a sense of unpleasantness, discomfort, worry, fretting, all those things when we are over contracted. Especially these days, there's a lot going on that will bring us into a state of contraction. So there's a constant, I don't want to say battle, but there's a constant need to ensure that we stay balanced, that we don't go too contracted, that we don't become too expanded, but stay centered, because that's what life is, a vacillation between contraction and expansion. So that's why I do these sessions every day. Till the day I die, I will be fighting that battle. And my hope is that through this practice that I can become more adept at inducing a state of expansion in myself on a regular basis, so that I don't ever get to the point where I feel like I'm in distress, where I need a drink, of alcohol or a joint or a masseuse or a chiropractor. These are all wonderful things to alleviate contraction. But I like to be able to help myself, and I like to feel that I have that power within me, and we all do have that power within us. We just need to practice. So that's why I'm here. So we're going to just do a relatively short scanning session today. Again, just to practice and get better and better at this. And we're going to start by just squeezing our hands together and remembering and recognizing that contraction is the bringing together of forces, ideas, thoughts, words, strength to achieve a goal. Contraction is a very useful thing. It's the stuff of life. When we stop contracting, when we cease to contract, when we cease to pull ourselves together, pull together ideas and notions and energies and goals, we dissipate and we turn to dust. So contraction is the stuff of life. We are here because some force brought us together so that we could achieve and do. But we tend to, in our attempt to keep safe and be happy, we tend to sometimes become overly contracted. Worry is a form of contraction. Thinking, putting together ideas to try to solve problems. Anxiety is a contraction. One might say a waste of contraction, because really when you're anxious, you're worrying about controlling the future or the past, which you really have no control over. I mean, we do have a certain amount of control, but excessive anxiety or worry are an excessive form of contraction or control, and they ultimately end up turning against us. They make us tense, they make us ill, they make us clouded in our brains. We can't successfully navigate life because we're so caged in by our own concerns and worries. So we balance that with expansion. That's all we're doing, is practicing the opposing force, because we forget that not only is it necessary, but we forget how to do it. So squeeze your hands together. Tight, tight, tight. That's you. That's me. That's everyone in the universe trying to achieve, trying to protect themselves, trying to be happy. And that's natural. But we become, as I said, overly contracted. Now, last night, for example, I'll do a scanning session in the middle of the night when I can't sleep, and I'll basically try and induce incremental muscular release, and I'll be astounded at the depth of tension I'm carrying in my body as I begin to explore and release these pockets of tension, just lying in bed at night in my sleep. It's accumulated stress that really inhibits us. It drains our energy. It makes it difficult for us to think and sleep and everything. So if we can find ways to release that, it's really beneficial to your life. So this is us. You're still squeezing your hand. This is what we do. That's okay. But as you can see, you tend to hold your breath when you're contracting. It's an effort. Your hands might feel a little uncomfortable. Perhaps you're thinking, gee, I'd rather not be doing this right now. This is taking a lot of effort, but I'm doing it. And so this is how it's making me feel. Pay attention to how contraction makes you feel. You feel strong. There's good aspects to contraction, but it's also somewhat limiting. It's also somewhat constricting. It also takes a lot of your focus. And so we can reverse that very easily by moving into an area of expansion. And how do we do it? We just decide. 3, 2, 1, release. And pay attention to what that felt like, to let go. Take a deep breath. So what we're doing with these initial steps in this process I call scanning is sort of attuning ourselves to the contrast between how it feels to be contracted. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. How does that feel? It's not a terrible thing, but it takes effort. How does that feel? Versus 3, 2, 1, release, expansion. Now, what I feel when I release is a sort of something passes through me, is the only way I can describe it when I release. It's as if my whole body is saying, thank you. Thank you. What a relief. What a relief to not have to be contracting. Effort, relief, contraction, expansion. So there's a sense of relief and release, and relief, both those words, when you expand. Relief because you're not having to work for a moment. You're not having to make an effort. You're not having to feel all those uncomfortable feelings that come with having to make an effort. It's great to work hard, but it takes focus, it takes energy. So when you tell yourself, I don't have to do that for a second, there's a sort of relief. Take a deep breath. One more. So now we've begun. We've moved ourselves into a state of expansion, ever so slightly. We've sort of brought our consciousness into a place. And, it's like when you begin any task, you have to kind of, get yourself in what they call the right frame of mind. We're reframing our perception of reality. We're kind of reframing it. We're orienting it towards, just like if you were to take a yoga class or anything, your mind is now set towards this process. So we're orienting ourselves towards the process of expansion. And we do that by just familiarizing ourselves. Again, squeeze, tight, 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 what it feels like to contract. As tight as you can, really tight. Stopped breathing, right? 3, 2, 1, release. Drop your hands, take a deep breath. One more. Another. 15 seconds of stillness and silence. See, the will, the mind, is very powerful. And obviously, because we can will ourselves to do all sorts of things in life, even if they're unpleasant or different or strange. So when you direct your will to change your very being, your consciousness, your physical being, it's a little jolting, but we can do it. Now, we just directed ourselves with our will to move ourselves from what has been our natural state, contraction, keeping it together, shall we say, into a state of expansion. We reminded ourselves what it feels like. That's just a slight little trick. Then we took a series of deep breaths. Why? Because breathing, to breathe is, look at your lungs, to expand. So again, we took another step towards orienting our body into an expansive state. Deep breaths. Then we sat in stillness and silence, and that's a sort of a focusing sort of technique. Stillness is the opposite of action. So if anxiety, worry, muscular effort are all forms of contraction, stillness is the opposite of action. So again, we moved ourselves towards expansion. Silence, because words, thought are, again, contractions, formation of words, thoughts, worry. These are actively contracting, trying to bring together solutions. Nothing wrong with that, unless we become overly contracted. We're trying to move in the opposite direction. So we sat in silence, to still our thoughts, our words, our speech. Again, just the introductory phase of moving ourselves towards a state of expansion. Now you might say, well, my mind kept racing while I was sitting there in silence. That's okay. That's okay. We're using our body. We're using our body as the tool to bring ourselves into this state of expansion. We're going to let the mind does what it wants to do. It's much more difficult to control the mind. The mind is very clever. It's very fast. It's very facile. So we're going to let the mind do what it does. We're going to let the body lead the way. You will find that through this process, that as your body becomes more relaxed, and that's what we're going to ultimately do, relax every muscle in our body that we possibly can, the mind will follow. Because the mind too will be seduced into this state of release and relaxation. If it's holding on to negative thoughts, those negative thoughts or whatever thoughts will simply float away. You'll see. You don't need to worry about that right now. The mind will take care of itself. We're going to work on the body. This is a physical, sensual process, this process which I call scanning, the incremental release of muscular tension. So let's do this introductory phase one more time, and then we're going to get right into the muscle work today because it's a shorter session. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. Remember, the universe is made of two basic forces, contraction or expansion. Squeeze your hands together. That's contraction. See what that feels like. Tight. Again, I always find myself holding my breath. When I induce a state of contraction, we sort of freeze up. We put our focus into the task at hand. That's natural. But you need to breathe. And breathing is expansion. So on my count, 3, 2, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. 3, 2, 1, release. See what that feels like. I felt it come into my chest. Take a deep breath. One more. And another. If you can, one more. Again, we're shocking ourselves. We're taking strong steps to induce this state of expansion. So it's very powerful initially. 15 seconds of stillness and silence. So before we get into the muscle work, let's kind of do an assessment. Again, these sessions are relatively brief. When I do a scanning session on my own, it's typically an hour, but occasionally I will do one that long here, but typically it's an hour. But usually here I do like a half an hour, 40 minutes. So we're moving along fairly quickly. But these initial steps are just to sort of, as I said, shock your body into a state of expansion. It's as if your being was this little kid running around a room, and you grab the kid by the shoulder and you said, come on over here, now settle down. I want you to sit down for a second, and I want you to take a moment and calm down. We're going to do a timeout. When you say to a kid, we're doing a timeout. Well, your body's been like this little kid running around and getting crazy and worrying and getting anxious and contracted. And by taking these deep breaths, you're sort of stopping this contraction in its tracks. Deep breaths are a sort of a strong physical inducement. It's the strongest thing you can do to your body, to sort of shock it into this expansive state. Now, you'll notice that when you make a fist, that's contraction, and then you release the fist, you can either do one or the other. Contract, make a fist, or release, expand. So you can't contract and expand at the same time. When you take deep, deep breaths, you are taking very expansive steps. You are immediately stopping all contraction. You can't contract and expand at the same time. So we take these strong, expansive breaths to stop the contractive process. And again, it can feel disorienting. You may get a little dizzy from the breaths. You may feel a little weird, like what's going on? We've been locked into a state of contraction. It's habitual. We've locked ourselves in. Contraction is frequently a solution. I have a problem. I need to do something. I need to say something. I need to think something. I need to go somewhere. I need to grab something. I need to change something. These are active actions. And so we've been locked into that state when we are fearful, when we are anxious, when we're concerned in life, which many of us have good reason to be concerned these days. It's a pretty scary world out there right now. We tend to go to contraction as the solution, and we get locked into it. And the more fearful we are, the more anxious we are, the more we lock in, the more we do. We think. We contract. And I say that by way of explanation, that we take these deep breaths to break that cycle, to shock ourselves out of the contraction and into a state of expansion. So it can be disorienting. As I said, it's as if a kid's running around a room and you grab the kid by the shoulders, compassionately, in a gentle, calm way. You sit them down, you say, stop, take a breath, take a moment. We're going to try something different now. We're doing a timeout. You're going to sit still, and you're going to be calm. We're going to calm ourselves down. So we're like little children. Our bodies are reactive, and we're taking these breaths to stop. Stop what you're doing, stop with the contractions, and move towards an expanded state. One more time. Squeeze your hands together. That's us working really hard, worrying, fretting, just trying to get things done, getting to a point where we're so contracted that we built a cage around ourselves, literally, around our physical being, our emotional being, our mental being. We're just locked up. And we know we've gone too far. We feel bad. We've lost our effectiveness. We're confused. We're overly contracted. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. So we're going to change that. 3, 2, 1, release. Drop your hands. Take 3 deep breaths. One more. And another. 15 seconds of stillness and silence. I spent a better part of the early morning doing my own scanning session and thinking I'd got myself to a complete state of relaxation. Then I started this session and realized, no, I have a great deal more to go. We've built in these tensions so deeply. They're so ingrained in us that it's amazing the depth to which physical tension will build. And as I said, the typical solution is to have some alcohol or have a joint, or go to someone who can help us because we don't think we can do it ourselves. Go to a masseuse or a therapist or a chiropractor, and that's all right. That's good. We need solutions. I'm just here to tell you you have the solution within you. So that's what we did. The main point being is to recognize that you have the power within you to bring yourself into a state of expansion. We just did it. I feel different already. And again, I started this session what I thought was relatively relaxed, and yet I'm amazed at how different I feel just from taking those deep breaths. How? I feel more still, more calm. My sense of time has shifted. I suddenly feel like I could sit and do nothing for 10, 15 minutes and be very comfortable with that. The sense of compulsion I was carrying around that comes with contraction, the sense that I must do something right now, I must go somewhere, I must think about something, I must, has dissipated. I feel like there's no must. There's nothing I need to do right now. I can just sit here. That peace and calm is an expanded state. That's what we're working towards. So that's the end of phase 1. Let's move into phase 2, the specific muscle work. Hopefully you've moved yourself by now. Let's say if a scale of 1 to 10, if you were to 10, maybe you've moved to a 9, an 8. It doesn't matter. Again, if you've expanded, you stop contracting. Any shift towards expansion is a shift towards expansion. You've moved yourself in that direction and away from contraction. Now you may say, yeah, but I still feel tense. I still feel weird. That's fine. Again, your body will hang on to contraction for dear life. The body, the being, senses that contraction is its only escape, is its only solution. And we're here to remind our very being that no, there is a better solution, and that is expansion. Again, we don't want to be one or the other. We want to be balanced. We become too contracted. We just want to reintroduce the process of expansion back into our system so that we can become centered and balanced. So here goes the muscle work. Now again, not to be repetitive, but scanning, Sqanning, is the incremental release of muscular tension, expansion, to achieve a deep state of physical and ultimately emotional and mental calm. So the ultimate goal here is to relax muscular tension, expansion. There's all forms of expansion. There's emotional expansion, mental expansion, physical expansion. This technique focuses on physical expansion because what I've discovered through a lot of experimentation, I've done this for so many hours just because I'm fascinated by the human body and the process and how it works, is that you can go either way. You can say, I'm going to relax my mind and then my body will follow. Or you can go, I'm going to relax my body and my mind will follow. I have found that the body is very simple to manipulate. They're just, not to be insulting, but dumb muscles. They can either contract or expand. Very simple to command and instruct. And very influential on the mind. I've found it much more effective to work on the body and that the mind will follow. So that's what I've devoted myself to, because in testing both, I've tried to calm my mind. It's a lot of work and tricky. The mind is so clever. And it's not a physical thing. A muscle will contract or expand. A mind will go over here, over there. It goes up, it goes down. It has logic and rationale. It's much more complicated. If you control your body and get your body to relax, the mind will be induced to follow, because the mind will relax. So that's this process. So I've divided, you could say, subdivided my body into 8 muscular zones. And I broke it down basically just so that I could focus more specifically, as opposed to just saying to the whole body, just relax. I could say, well, this part, just work on this part. So we started with the hands, because the hands, we close and open them all the time. It's easy to say contract and expand your hands. It's very familiar to us, but we want to relax the whole body. So we started here to familiarize you with the process of expansion, the incremental release of muscular tension. And you're going to get really good at this. You're going to get to where you can release any muscle in your body, just like you do your hands. Squeeze, release. See how easy that was? You're going to get to where I'm going to say the shoulder, and you'll be able to direct your energy to your shoulder. And on my count, 3, 2, 1, let the tension go in your shoulder. You're going to get that good at it. That's why we practice. That's what this practice is. Fundamentally, we're learning muscular control, specifically the release of muscular control. And again, you will feel many feelings while you release these muscles. Our muscles hold all sorts of protection. We conceal all sorts of emotion in our muscles. As you release muscles, you may begin to feel emotional. You may begin to feel like crying or laughing. You might feel tingling. You might feel throbbing. You might feel nervous, frightened, uncomfortable, exposed, vulnerable. We're holding a lot all the time in our muscles, in our body. The reason massages feel so good is they're working out those tensions and inducing this relaxation. I don't want to have to drive to a masseuse. I don't want to have to write the check. I want to be in control of my own body. I don't mind paying people for great services, and massages can feel great. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying it's nice to know you have the ability within yourself to induce this deep state of relaxation. So the 8 muscular zones that I have defined, and you can do your own, are 1, the face; 2, the top of the head; 3, the back of the head; 4, the neck; 5, the chest and stomach; 6, the back down into the pelvis; 7, I got behind. 4, the neck; 5, the shoulders; 6, the chest and stomach; 7, the back down into the pelvis; and 8, the last zone, down the legs and into the feet. Start with the face. On my count, I want you to release an incremental amount of muscular tension from your face. Well, how do you do that? That's what we're learning. We're used to controlling certain parts of our body. We're not used to controlling others. Now, I'm an actor, so my face, I'm very expressive. I'm somewhat more familiar with that. But even so, it's weird to just let go of the muscles. 3, 2, 1, watch. See that droop, that kind of sag, that kind of funny looking face? That's what we're doing. It's like we're flipping a switch that turns the power off to the muscles. The muscles are contracted, the electrical charges are making them contract, and we go 3, 2, 1. You're turning off the power. You're inducing an incremental release of muscular tension. That's one image. You can say also, I'm going to make myself look like a hound dog. I'm going to let myself droop. I'm going to become a jellyfish. Whatever imagery helps you. But what you're doing is you're releasing muscular tension. And you're studying what that feels like. The face. 3, 2, 1, let it go. Now, for some reason, but I know the reason, we feel a need to carry around a certain amount of muscular tension. That expression, keeping it together. We feel like if we let go of our muscular tension, we will fall apart. And even if we don't fall apart, we will be exposed. If we let go of muscular tension, our guard will be down. So you can feel uncomfortable. You can feel anxious. You can feel exposed. That's okay. Feelings are only uncomfortable when they're emerging. Transitions are difficult. Transitions are uncomfortable. Once you have let the emotion out, once things have emerged, they feel great. It's the transition. And you've had a lot of feelings tucked away behind all that muscular guard. So just be aware that if you feel uncomfortable or weird, that's perfectly natural, okay? The face. 3, 2, 1. And if you don't feel a lot, that's okay. These are very subtle changes, but they're cumulative. So as you begin to add more and more relaxed muscle groups, that feeling will build, and you start to feel this feeling of release, total body release. Take a deep breath. Always take breaths. They're very expansive, and they will contribute to this process. The top of the head. You go, well, what does the top of the head feel like? How do I release the muscles in the top of my head? I wasn't even aware I had them. That's exactly right. We are building an awareness through this process of your musculature, of the way your body works. Again, it's a very sensual process. The top of the head, 3, 2, 1, release. Just a dropping sensation. Do the face and the top of the head together. 3, 2, 1. Now, you might notice as you do this, you'll feel another part of your body relax in sympathy with the area you're working on. For example, I just felt my shoulders drop. That's okay. If you have the ability and skill to completely release all the muscles, all the muscular tension in your body at once, for God's sakes, go for it. It's fantastic. If you start to feel that, go for it. You don't have to stick to these zones. These are just ways of inducing relaxation. Top of the head, 3, 2, 1. Okay? Again, what's important is that you pay attention to what that felt like so that you can replicate that act. The back of the head, 3, 2, 1. Now you're feeling as though a sort of sagging sensation, like you have this hood of muscles and flesh that's hanging on your skull, and it's starting to just drape itself down. It's starting to just hang. The face, the top of the head, the back of the head, 3, 2, 1. And it's that feeling, you know, when you have a drink, right? You have a drink. It doesn't hit you right away. Excuse me. A minute or two, or depending on the strength of the drink, goes by, and suddenly you feel this sort of this, again, release and relief. All that tension, that's what we're doing when you take a drink, you smoke a joint. You want that tension to go away. It's exhausting. Muscular tension takes energy, takes work. And the more racked with tension we get, the more contracted we get, we start to feel like we're wearing this heavy suit of, Middle Ages armor. And it just starts to wear you down, and you want to take it off. Muscular tension is a sort of steel-plated suit of armor. And, enough, I want to take it off. So you take a drink, or you smoke a joint, or you pop a pill, and at some point there's this relief. It's fallen away. You can breathe. You're free. So that's a chemically induced form of muscular relaxation. So we're trying to learn here how to do it ourselves. If you'd rather drink, go ahead. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I get it. I've done my share. It feels really good. The only problem is there's detrimental side effects, which I found, detrimental for my life. So I tried to achieve this naturally. The back of the head, 3, 2, 1, release. Now put them together. The face, the top of the head, the back of the head, 3, 2, 1, release. Take a deep breath. Another. One more. 15 seconds of stillness and silence. So I will admit to you that right now this is like weird. I feel a little dizzy. I feel a little uncomfortable. I feel a little disoriented. I feel a change happening, but it's not necessarily completely comfortable. That's because I'm releasing. I'm opening up. I'm moving myself into an expanded state. In the morning when we get up, a lot of times I got to have a cup of coffee. I got to have a cup of coffee. Why? Because we've been sleeping, we're contracted, and we just don't feel like we can handle our day. We can't face our day because we're so constricted. We can't open up and expand and merge with the world because we're contracted. So we drink coffee. Coffee induces a sort of stimulation. It forces us to expand. It chemically forces us to expand. We wake up, our eyes open, we breathe. All sorts of things happen, and we go, okay, now I can face the world. Well, this deep breathing, these moments of stillness and silence, this muscular relaxation achieves the same thing naturally. It takes more time, takes more focus, concentration, and practice. But it's a natural way to do it. Once you begin to experience it, you're going to be addicted to it. You're going to love it. You're going to want to do it all the time. But I will admit to you, to this day, after years of practice, it still feels uncomfortable to me. I find myself resistant to the process because I feel like I'm being exposed. That's natural. Just a warning. The neck. It's okay to touch your skin, move yourself around. Again, this is a sensual process. We're expanding, we're opening up, we're bringing feelings, emotions, sensations back into our body, because when you're contracted, it's like pinching a hose. You cut off the flow of emotions and sensations. It's a physical necessity for the body. You know, our bodies are amazing the way they're designed. When we have to take action, when we have to achieve something or protect ourselves or people we love or whatever, our emotions are cut off. They don't go away. They're always there. That's an important thing to remember about emotions. They don't go anywhere. They're in you. They've just been locked away so that you could effectively go to battle, metaphorically, without being distracted or disoriented or confused by your emotions. You know, a lot of times people will go into battle and they'll just great fight and they'll come out and they'll say, I did it. And someone will say, hey man, you're bleeding. You go, what do you mean bleeding? Yeah, you got a big cut on your arm. You go, oh, I didn't even feel it. I was in battle. So that's what our protective bodies do. So as you begin to relax and release and come out of that contracted state, you're going to start to feel things. And that can be disorienting and uncomfortable. But you're freeing yourself. Again, there's a time to be contracted and a time to be expanded. We need to find a balance. We're here to bring expansion back into our lives. The neck, 3, 2, 1, release. Again, the neck, 3, 2, 1, release. Take a deep breath. Another. One more. 15 seconds, stillness and silence. Now again, the main change I feel as I start to move into an expanded state has less to do with my muscles and more to do with my frame of reference, my state of consciousness. I start to feel a sort of, the only way that can be described is stillness, a sort of comfort in the moment. Like I could just sit here for the rest of the day and not do anything and feel fine with that. This expanded state. And it feels really good because you suddenly don't feel a compulsion to do anything. You don't feel like there's some place you have to go, something you have to do, think, say, work out. You're just in the moment. You're at peace. You've been detached from all the external processes that you felt were defining you and solving your problems. You've just come to a place where it's all right here. That's the shift I feel. You may feel something similar or different, but it's important to sort of take note. Zone 5 is the shoulders. Let them drop a couple of centimeters. 3, 2, 1, release. It's okay if you slouch in your chair. Again, we're letting go, letting go, letting go. We've carried this huge amount of muscular tension on very subtle levels all through our body, and we're letting that tension go. It's alleviating us of a huge amount of energy expenditure. Keeping a muscle contracted takes energy. Expanding it takes no energy. So on a subtle level, in 1,000 ways throughout our body, we've been holding. We weren't even aware of it. We've just been holding, keeping it together. We're finding those pockets of tension. We're scanning our body, looking for them, and we're letting go. And it's cumulative. Eventually the body says, oh, it's safe to release. And it just lets go. And you feel free. Free of that physical cage, emotional cage, psychological cage you've built, presumably to protect yourself. But you didn't need to. You were unnecessarily expending energy. I have a theory, and it's a recent theory, but I wonder sometimes if aging isn't as much related to the physical degradation of the body as an accumulated stress over the course of your life, accumulated tensions. And you notice older people are restricted in their thought, in their bodies. They become closed in. And I couldn't help but wonder if this cumulative contraction over the course of our life literally ages us. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if through the process of expansion, we could literally extend our lives? We could we can't stop, but slow the aging process by keeping ourselves balanced as we age, by keeping ourselves expanded, even though the tendency is to want to contract. Think about it. As you get older, you become more fearful. You have more to worry about. You know, you're getting older. So what do? You close in. You contract, contract, contract. You protect yourself. And you'll notice older people are sometimes more rigid in their thinking, more rigid in their bodies, perhaps rigid in their emotions. They become locked in. It's part of the aging process. And I'm hoping that this technique will possibly help elderly people in expanding, opening up their body and thereby their emotions and their minds, and literally slow the aging process and perhaps even induce a sort of youth thinning. That's my theory. I'm testing it. The shoulders, 3, 2, 1, release. Deep breath. It's not that contraction is the enemy. Again, contraction is action. It's taking steps to achieve a goal. It's that we become overly contracted. We become out of balance. We become more contracted than expanded. All we need is a balance. Zone 6 is the chest, into the stomach and the waist. 3, 2, 1, release. Again, the chest. 3, 2, 1, release. Zone 7 is the back, down into the pelvis. Focus on those areas. Again, you're just looking for a subtle shift. You're looking for that sensation of, watch my hand, letting go. Tight, takes energy. Expansion, release. You're looking for that sensation in your back now and down into your pelvis. 3, 2, 1, release. The pelvis is a very important region. A lot of Eastern religions focus on the center, they call it. This area somewhere beneath your navel and down into the pelvic region. The area, of course, of sexuality and waste elimination, full of tensions and concerns and worries and anxieties, loss of control, fears of loss of control. So if you can induce a state of release in that area, it's beneficial beyond belief to your entire being. The back down into the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, release. And there's a sort of an unclenching sensation, and that's all I'll say about it. But just, think about that. Think if you can induce that and see what it does for your overall being. The back down into the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, release. Deep breath. The final zone is zone 8. That's down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet. The feet are very, very important. The feet and the pelvis, amazing how much tension is held in those areas. So just become aware of your feet for a moment. 3, 2, 1. Try to release the slightest amount of tension. All you're doing is directing your feet to do this. 3, 2, 1, release. Direct that change to your feet. Now again, you might find yourself thinking, I don't know what you're talking about. It makes no sense. How do I release the tension in my feet? This is why we drink or smoke joints or take drugs, because that chemically makes that happen. It forces it to happen. And again, I'm here to tell you, you can make it happen yourself. And once you know how to do it, it's a phenomenal sensation to know that you have that kind of control over your very state of consciousness and being. It's just incredibly empowering. The feet, 3, 2, 1, release. What's holding us back from expanding? Fear, frustration, concentration is difficult. But if you practice, it gets easier. The feet, 3, 2, 1, release. So now we've done the whole body. The 8 zones, as I call them. Now again, this is general. You can create your own, but this is the point is to move through your body, exploring, scanning the musculature, and finding ways to incrementally release the tension. And then you cycle through. You repeat. You could do this 5, 10, 20 times. Don't get frustrated if you don't feel a lot of results. Again, the body is very resistant. I would suggest to you that the more resistance you feel, the more frustrated you get, the more you are contracted, the more resistant you are to this process, the more you will benefit. The more you will benefit from this process. Resistance is an excellent sign that there's gold in those minds. There's gold in them there minds. It's worth pursuing. When I'm resistant is when I'll most benefit from this process. Because when you're in an expanded state, when you are at peace, still, calm, centered, you have no resistance to anything. Thaddeus Golis, the man who wrote the book The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment, on which I base many of these ideas, says when you're completely expanded, the time is always now. Everything is possible. All things are conceivable. You don't fight or resist any concept, idea. Everything is what it is. You're not resistant. You're just accepting. So as you move into an expanded state, you'll find that you're just more at peace. If you're resistant, if you're in a state of what I call no, then you're in a contracted state. And you will benefit tremendously in terms of your state of being, your sense of self by expanding. The resistance you feel is not a signal or a message we should always pay attention to. You know, our body sends us all sorts of signals. You should do this now. You should do that. Well, the body's based in fear. We're physical beings. We're designed for survival. When the body feels a threat, it takes certain steps it believes will protect it. Contraction. Physical, emotional, and mental guards, cages are put up to protect us. It's an instinctive response. We have the ability to step outside the body and direct it to do what we want. So the body may be doing things it thinks are protecting it, but in fact, it's hurting you. But we have the ability to step outside and tell the body what we want it to do. That's what scanning is. It's saying, what I want you to do now is stop contracting and start expanding. The body says, no, I must protect you. You say, the self that stepped outside the body says, I understand what you're trying to do. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. But you have contracted to the degree that you are now harming me. You've built a physical, emotional cage around me. I can't breathe. The better self, my consciousness, knows that that's not working for me. So I now instruct you, and the body must listen. The muscles are dumb. They can either contract or expand. The body must listen. You tell the body, I want you to, 3, 2, 1, expand. The body says, that's weird. It feels uncomfortable. I feel at risk. You go, I understand. Keep going. 3, 2, 1, release. Take a deep breath. You see, we're in control. Our consciousness is in control of our body. We can direct it to do what we want. We will face resistance from the body, tremendous resistance. The body will send you even stronger signals. No, you're putting me at risk. Don't let go. And you know better, and you say, keep going. Expand, 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 expand. And then the body will go, oh, that feels good. I guess I wasn't in as much danger as I thought. And the body will thank you. As the body expands and relaxes and releases, it will influence the emotions, which will open up, also healthier. You'll feel better. And the mind will release all its negative, obsessive thoughts. You will be calm, you will be centered, you will be still, you will be at peace. All through the simple act of incremental muscular release. And that's it. So again, this is a short session. What I recommend when you practice on your own is you take as much time as you like. Take an hour sometime. And if you feel resistant, you feel like you're wasting time or you're fidgety, just try staying with it once. Just say, I'm going to give this 15 solid minutes. I'm going to give this a half an hour. Try it. See what happens. If you can push past the resistance, if you can just keep incrementally releasing those muscles, if you can push past the resistance that you're setting yourself up for, you're resisting yourself. But again, you can step outside your body and you can direct it to keep going, just like we do anything. You know, we don't want to practice piano. We don't want to run, jog, even though we know it's good for us. But we push ourselves past it because we know it's good for us. Same thing here. Push yourself past the resistance and you will emerge on the other side a freer, calmer, more centered, more at peace being. And you'll be able to sit in stillness and silence with complete comfort and joy because you're just at peace with yourself. That's the balance we need to counterbalance all the fret, all the worry, all the anxiety, all the self-criticism, all the pursuit of goals that drives us insane. It's all a necessary part of life, but the balance we need is to know that at any moment we can come back to a place that says, no matter what happens, I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. I have been fine. I am fine. I'm going to be fine. We deserve to. We need to come to that place at least once a day. We owe it to ourselves. It's really good for you. And that's what scanning seeks to achieve. So that's it for today. Anyone has any questions, you're welcome to message me at any time. And of course, comment here. This is called scanning, Sqanning. It's the relaxation technique that utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, primarily, followed by emotional and mental calm. We work through the body. This is a physical process, no philosophy per se, no book to read. To achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. And that's all we do. It's very simple. Very, very simple. I'm not teaching you anything. I'm reminding you of an ability you've always had, always will have. That's all. I will share this session immediately on my personal Facebook page, and then on the Sqanning Facebook page, Sqanning, which you're welcome to like and follow if you want to be alerted when the new sessions. I try to be here sometime between mid-morning and early afternoon once a day. And remember, rule number one, love yourself. That's the most important rule. There's plenty of love out there. Take as much as you want and give it to yourself. And when you've got so much that it's just spilling over, take all that extra and pass it around, because man, we could all use it. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.